Hey, hello patrons, how are you? I hope you're doing well. So, I'm going to show you some behind the scenes of the Buff Souls 2 Scholar of the First Lift trailer that I worked on. Like a cold open kind of little video to get the people hyped whenever I'm streaming Dark Souls 2. I'm pretty proud of this, it's pretty neat. I wanted to boost the production value of my streams like all around, especially compared to Dark Souls 1, because the first time we did Buff Souls, the stream was laggy, some of the assets were just kind of like copy-paste, little things like that. The most effort that I put into it was modding the game to have texture hacks and things like that. Unfortunately, you can't do texture hacking or mods in Dark Souls 2 Scholar of the First Sin as easily as you can in Dark Souls 1, because Dark Souls 1 has a thing called DS Fix, because the PC port was so bad. They fixed it and it gave players like new ways of like customizing the game to suit, their systems and things like that. But Dark Souls 2 has an intense anti-cheat device because, people are pretty intense about their PvP. So I couldn't do texture hacks for Dark Souls 2, or, well, I probably could, there's probably a way I could do it, but I didn't want to risk getting the VAC ban on my Steam account, just for this, when there are other solutions that I could do. So I made new assets that I could hotkey on Streamlabs OBS, little very good and the get ripped, things like that. I've also, made a new banner at the top, and I've got like little lower thirds that I've been working on, just, little things like that to help keep the stream like kind of lively, kind of polished, things like that. And now that my internet's a lot better, I'm way happier with the quality of my streams and the show in general. And, I feel like things are just going uphill from here. And in fact, I think people have noticed it as well. And, the Twitch channel's growing like very quickly, which is very nice. But enough of that, we're going to talk about the actual trailer that I made for Buff Souls. So like I said, I wanted to increase the production value. The first trailer that I did for Buff Souls 1, it was just basic trailer footage from Dark Souls with just, gameplay footage and recut clips from the trailers, because I'm trying to go through the game spoiler-free to my very best intents. So we had the trailer for Buff Souls 1 just kind of recut in a way, and it was okay. It got the job done. I didn't even edit most of it. Most of the editing came from my friend Chris Strex, who also did the voiceover work. Paid him a little bit of money for that, because he's a sweetheart, and he knows that I wanted to go in spoiler-free, so he did what he could to write the script in a way that would tell more of the Dark Souls lore without really spoiling it for me. So I could watch the trailer and not have the game ruined for me, which is a very interesting kind of dynamic when you're creating something. When you're trying to create something, you should know everything about the subject matter so then you can do it justice. But for Buff Souls, I'm trying to be blind, right? So I have to try my best to illustrate this idea and this theme that's faithful to the people that enjoy Dark Souls already, while also not ruining that experience for myself. So there's a very distinct balance, and I think for the first trailer, Chris did a very good job with that. For Buff Souls 2, I took heavy inspiration from the opening of Dark Souls 2, because I've only played the start of Dark Souls 2. I only got up to the main city of Majula, the main town, because I wanted to see how the game ran, things like that, so then I could test the stream. Because if the game turned out to not run that well, then it would suffer on the stream and all that. But luckily, the game runs very well. So I got to Majula. I've seen the opening trailer and some of the announcement trailers that was from E3 or whatever, whenever it was announced. And so I decided to base my trailer off of those trailers. And I did it in such a way that was borderline like cut for cut, you know, like there's all sorts of little bits in it. So let's dive into that in a second. But first of all, I want to talk about the production of actually filming it. So basically, when we filmed this, it was over the span of like 2 or 3 days, and this was like, if you don't know, I've been in America for the first 3 months of this year, and when I got back to New Zealand, like the day two or three of me being back home, I was like burning with creative power, essentially. So I was like, I need to go film this thing. So I'm like jet lagged when I wrote, conceptualized, and organized the filming of this thing. So we went out, me and my good friend Isaac. He does Instagram work. His link is on the screen right now. I think it's just Isaac Evans NZ, I think that's it. He is extremely talented. He's an extremely talented cameraman, great photographer. He just knows what works and what doesn't, and he's really easy to work with. And he's a childhood friend of mine. He only lives like down the street from me. We've known each other since we were tiny lads. Real good dude. So I was trying to figure out a location to film this, and I was looking for a really rocky, kind of sheltered beach area, because I'm trying to remember what Majula looked like. So I was like, all right, we need somewhere that has a good sunset, like somewhere that has like a good tones in the sun while not being overbearing at night, because which was one slight issue with that, is that if we wanted to incorporate the sun in any of our films on a beach, we would have to go literally to the other side of the country, because we are on the east side. So the sunrises are great. Isaac and I have done a lot of like sunrise photography stuff, and like done all-nighters together, and you know, all that kind of business. So we've seen a lot of sunrises together. Sunsets are a lot harder to find for us, since we're on the east side. Sunrises in the east, sets in the west. So we took a little road trip from our hometown all the way to, I think it's called Whatapu, something like that. I'm not entirely sure. The Maori language it's kind of complicated. Like a WH has like a sound, so it's like Whatapu. So we went to Whatapu, which is a big old beach with rocks in it and stuff like that. It's actually a nature reserve. Not a nature reserve. It's kind of like a slightly protected area. So fires aren't allowed, and we only realized that fires weren't allowed after we bought all of our kindling, all of the fire stuff that we needed to make the bonfire. So we kind of snuck over to like make this thing. So we have like a 2 or 3 hour drive all the way to Whatapu, and we get there. We are carrying my dumbbells, which are like 14 kilograms or like 30 pounds. All of the camera work, so that's tripods, 2 cameras, the lenses, the water, the Estes flask, a box of logs and kindling and fire stuff. So it's a lot of stuff that we're carrying. It is exhausting amount. Like, it had to have been probably like, I think I must have carried about, I think it was like 45 to 50 pounds of stuff and equipment that we needed for the shoot. So where we parked and getting to the location where we filmed took about half an hour, 20 minutes to half an hour of walking through it was essentially a swamp. Like, there was heavy rains the day before, because it was winter over, and it's winter in New Zealand right now. So we had to go through a flooded pathway. The pathway that you would normally take from the parking lot to the beach was completely flooded. So we had to go through all of it. My shoes were ruined, my pants were ruined, all that kind of business. But we carried it all, scoped out the location, went back, got more gear, came back again, set up, made the fire, tried to get into an area that was like on the edge of the coast, so it was covered by rocks, so like the background was decently shaded, so then the sun wouldn't like blast into us, but we could still have the same warmth of the sun, and the rocks could also provide as like a shield for the for the winds that came in, so then the fire wouldn't go apeshit, or we could actually light the fire. So it was pretty intense. When the fire was going, we realized that we had limited time until the sun set. Set. We set up the fire. We did all of the filming. So it was like, all right, here's the angles we need, and here's the shots that we need. What if you're ever going out to film something? Make a shot list. Make a shot list. It's so important. I had like a notebook with just being like, this is the idea that we're doing. I need these kinds of things. I need this shot specifically, this shot specifically, this shot specifically. And so, we filmed as much as we could, and I had quite a decent amount of footage to work with. When I was editing it, I had to like zoom in the frame slightly, or I had to like twist the frame slightly, so then there was like some slight variations. So, or I had to like reflect, or like just flip the canvas or whatever, just so then like when there's like that smash cut montage at the end of the trailer where it's like getting all hyped up, some of those shots are just like the exact same shot but just zoomed in slightly, so then it looks varied and there's lots more going on. It's like, because if you repeated the same shot in a montage, it doesn't look like you're doing much. Like, the whole point of a montage is like, look at all of these things that we've had to do in this short amount of time. So I had to vary up the shots as much as possible in order to emphasize that, like, I was dying, working out, and dying and working out, and dying and working out over and over and over and over again. And the more varied shots just kind of illustrated that pressure more and more and more. Things like that. So we did that, and then when the sun was setting, we did like a little photo shoot to make sure that we could work with the lighting. Some of these shots were okay, like, I like them, and Zach did a great job. I ripped the shirt, and the dark part of the shirt and the dark part of the rocks kind of blends. It doesn't like suit my shape that much. And plus I told Isaac to do like a lower angle, and it didn't really work out considering that my beard hadn't grown back yet. So it looked like it's kind of showing off the thick chin a little bit, which is fine. I'm probably going to end up using a couple of these. The whole point of doing the shoot was for, promotional material. I post a picture up on Twitter, be like, hey, we're playing Dark Souls 2, and things like that. But I haven't really done it yet. We'll see how I feel about it. We did get some really, really good shots, though. Like, there's one that's, like, now my profile picture on Twitter. Oh, boy. That boy knows how to define features in his photography. I felt really good about it. Felt pretty handsome. Not gonna lie. Isaac was really stoked about it because he got to work with like a new lighting source that was very dynamic. Fire is a constant flickering, like moving thing that's very natural. It provides like a light source so the lighting will change in every photo. One of the problems with doing the photo shoot, well, I'm not going to say problems, but one of the struggles was the smoke from the fire. So the smoke made things look really cool. It accentuated a lot of the lighting. It made the details in the rocks very like prominent, and it looked really good. One of the main problems for me was that the smoke was in my eyes, and it's really hard to do a workout really close to a blazing hot fire and sit and do a pose by a fire that when like a gust of wind will like spark up, and all these sparks will fly up in your face, and you'll get your legs kind of singed and things like that. So you do it for the shot. You're gonna go intense and go all the way in. But there's photos of me like clenching my eyes closed, and like and like my eyes are like really watered, things like that. But I have hairy legs, and they weren't as hairy when we finished doing the shot. It was good, though. It was really good. Yeah, I'm really happy with how the shoots came out, and it worked really well. So we had that. We drove back home. I cut together what I could. Isaac sent me all of the photos, and then I think like a couple days later, we decided to film the rest of the shoot, which was in a forest for the forest scene. Now, the forest scene was pretty good because that's where most of the parallels from the original Dark Souls 2 trailer comes in. So, the Dark Souls 2 trailer opens up with like the rain and the close-up of the hands, and, you know, the guy on the ground, things like that. So we got to mimic a lot of those aspects. So in the Dark Souls 2 trailer, it's guy on the ground, wandering in the forest, a bunch of close-ups of, you know, him being consumed by the hollowness, becoming a hollow, and it uses like this dark lens kind of thing. The frailty of his mind, you could see he had this memory of a loved one, and then it smash cuts to him outside of the hag's door. So it's like, oh, how did I get here? I'm slowly like, am I who I am again? Like, who am I? Like, that's a part of Dark Souls, and becoming a hollow is losing your identity, losing your purpose, and how you're going to cope and deal with that, which is interesting, because I wanted to twist those themes and make it about, use the same kinds of shots and make it the same kind of feel and tone, but restructuring the context to make it about failure and pushing past failure to improve yourself, which is the whole premise of Buff Souls, right? So I'm using the same kinds of shots, the same kinds of pacing in order to make my own narrative in the edit. So for instance, the reaching out shot that's in Dark Souls 2, and then it goes to the door, it's kind of a match shot where he's like reaching out, and then there's like a reach out to the person, and then it cuts to a different angle of them reaching to the door. It had a good idea, but I wanted to expand on that idea and have a better match shots. So when we were in the forest, we would have me reaching for the Estus, and then have the exact same angle from when we shot at the beach in Fatapu. So we had me reaching for the dumbbells. So reaching for the Estus, you know, we had the establishing shot of me like limping through the forest, having a bloodied arm, me on the ground, reaching for the thing. So it's very clear that the forest scene is of me dying and me failing, and reaching for the Estus to try and get a heal of some kind, to like try and heal, to be dependent on it, to like try and push through this failure that I'm having. And then just as I'm about to get the Estus, it's like, too late, you're already dead. Now do a workout. I wanted that the music like matches that cut really well, and I think it's because of the instant change in the scenery and the cut and everything, and it hits the audience with like this, oof, the guy failed, like, this is it, this is what happened now, you're dead. Death like hits you like that, you know? So I think I hit that match cut like really well, so I feel good about that. The forest scene was very interesting because when we were shooting it, it was a local bushwalk that Isaac and I went to, and it's very much is like a high canopy of all of these trees, so we had very limited lighting, and that kind of worked in a lot of the ways. So we had some darker tones, a lot of detail pressed in. In one of the announcement trailers, not the preview trailer of Dark Souls 2, there's a shot of a knight with a bloodied hand, like blood dripping from his armor, blood dripping down on the floor, and it being like acidic in a way. So I kind of wanted to match that as well. So then that's just like another reference we can drop on, and then it's also a strong establishing shot, so we have something to work with. Isaac had a great idea of using I think it's a low ISO, so then less light comes into the lens, so it's darker beyond, like, further into the frame. So the cut opens up with like the leaf. When we first shot it, there was like, you know, just kind of rocks and pebbles, and Isaac had the idea, like, if we brought more into this frame, then the blood can drip onto the leaf and it's more forefront in the frame, things like that. And like, that was a good idea. Added a bit more texture to the entire scene, or that you could really see the contrast of the blood a bit more. And then when it cuts to the hand, there's like the reveal. It's like, oh, that's where it came from. Okay, sick. And I wanted to have the Havel's Ring, because, you know, Havel's Ring is really important to Dark Souls. It's really important to me because of Buff Souls. It's, you know, it's an equip load thing. It helps make you lift more. And I noticed someone yesterday saying in chat that someone was like, oh, it's like Havel's Ring is the brand of the buff. Like, to be buff is to have Havel's Ring. And I'm like, yes, that's what I like. That's what I like. That's what I wanted. I'm happy that that kind of imagery was pressed on into the trailer, and people absorbed that. So with that, we filmed the forest scene, and that was really good. Now, after that, Isaac has had a lot of inspiration, because he's mostly been known for his landscape work, you know, taking photos of distinct places in New Zealand. You know, we went to different waterfalls a couple times. I've been on a few of his projects. It's been really fun. And now he's doing more portrait work, and so I helped him out with that. And I figured, hey, if we're doing portrait work, let's do more of those dark shot things that you did with the leaves and stuff like that in the Buff Souls trailer. And it ended up being just perfect. It was absolutely perfect for what we needed, because I needed the shots of the arms and like close-ups and things like that. And we tried doing it in the forest scene because there was limited lighting in the forest scene. But this time we had a backdrop, and I got like another singlet, because I ripped like 3 singlets for this entire video. Zach came over, we set up everything, we shot the slow motion stuff. Now the slow motion stuff was very interesting, because we actually shot it at I think it was 30 frames a second. So that's like a decent frame rate. But the thing is, if it was like normal slow motion where you just like slow it down, it wouldn't work that well. But I have pretty crafty editing and frame blending, where I know a way that when I slow it down, it can create in between frames. So then the slow motion is a lot more smooth. And the reason why it was so smooth is because we had the dark background and the dark singlet blending into the frame. So the only thing the computer had to render out was just pretty much the arms and the dumbbells. So that's not a busy frame. It's a very bland kind of frame. Well, I say bland, but it's a minimalist frame. So that way the computer has less pixels to play with. It has less that it has to like read up and re-render and all that business. So the slow motion ended up being very, very smooth, and it looked really good. And because of the black background, I got to do different kinds of frame blending styles. So I could layer different images on top of it. It was a real surge of inspiration and creativity for me because of the way it was shot. So I worked with that to reflect the hollowing scenes, like the hollowing montage that's in the Dark Souls 2 trailer. It was like, oh, this is what it is to be buff. Like, this is the buffening instead of the hollowing, you know? So that worked. Instead of having like the dark augur that's around, you know, there's like a shot that's over the shoulder and has like this big brand on the character. Instead of having that, I wanted to have something that's got a bit more color to it, and I realized that, you know, I have like this red element on my dumbbell, so let's have like a red effect that's like more, it reflects the blood from the previous scene, you know? So there's like this angry, passionate kind of like pumping of blood, sweat, and tears. So using red and warm tones throughout the entire piece even, like, really worked. So we had like this strong motif throughout everything, and it made the Estes coming into color like more apparent, things like that. Because in the forest scene, I made it have like desaturated colors, so then it was like, you know, you're losing your life, you're losing color, you're losing all of this. But then it was very warm and vibrant in this the beach scenes and the Estes and the workout scenes, because I wanted the failure to not be the emphasis. Like, I don't want the workouts to be seen as a punishment. I want it to be seen as a room for improvement and an inspiration to go back into it and go harder and improve on where I messed up last time. That's the whole premise of the show, and I wanted the colors to emphasize that. So with the dark scene, I wanted to add some more splashes of color, so I did some trap code particulars, which is a very complex particle system in After Effects. So these are usually the things that you could use to make like sparks, you know, starlight, neon lasers, all sorts of things are used in it. You know, if you see an explosion in a video game or in a movie, it usually will have particle effects to a degree. So I wanted to add this like splotchy, starry kind of fiery kind of texture to it, and I added it to the Estes flask for when it was growing in color, and that looked really good. It looked very fiery in a way. in a weird, ghostly kind of way. So I added that as another blending layer onto the arms, and it made the arms just look a lot more dynamic and corporeal in a way. So I think that looked really, really good. And then it just like pressed on like the same motif as well. So it just built upon the layers and layers that I'm establishing, while also recontextualizing the Dark Souls 2 trailers in general. Yeah. So I felt really good about that. And outside of that, we took a couple more photo shoot things for it. It looked really good. We had really dynamic lighting, and I did some more photo shoots to help out Isaac. Cut it together, did some color correcting, and I think it turned out great. I really do. I'm really happy with it. Whenever I play it on the stream, people will say, "Hey, I forget how good of an editor you are," and sometimes I forget it. So, you know, when I work freelance, sometimes you have to work on stuff that doesn't demand much of you. But when I work on my own stuff, I really get methodical about it. I get really into what each cut means, what each effect means, what each splash of color means. And I'm happy that I could make something that is recontextualized from something that's already made, can put it in the context of a show that's just kind of silly in general, and it still be its own thing. It can still be its own thing in its own way, and still show off what I can do as an editor. Outside of that, I wrote the script. You know, I had to listen to the trailer, so I rewrote the trailer to have dumb puns in it. So instead of the old lady saying, "Perhaps you've seen it, maybe in a dream," I wrote it to be, "Perhaps you've seen it, maybe on a stream." You know, little things like that, just to keep it like kind of campy, kind of chill, kind of funny. Like, we all know like how intense the cut is, but it's just, at the end, it's me playing video games and doing a workout. Like, it's silly, right? It's a fun thing. It's gonna be chill, it's gonna be fun, but I wanted to like still emphasize like how hype it could be. And so I once again got my friend Chris Strex to do the voiceover work for it, and he just like nailed it. He just like went really hard on it being like overly campy. When I sent him the script, his eyes were just like rolling, just being like, "I can't believe I'm gonna have to read this." And that's the exact reaction I wanted out of him. And he did just such a good job. Isaac just did an amazing job, and I'm really happy with how the entire project came out. This kind of thing also just made me inspired to like see what I might do for Dark Souls 3. I'm probably gonna recut a lot of this. Honestly, this thing is so decent, like it's so solid that I might keep it for Dark Souls 3. But we'll see how I feel about Buff Souls in general when I hit Dark Souls 3, because, you know, I might end up doing Monster Hunter next, and that might have one. It might just be like a chill trailer as well. We'll find out. In the meantime, I'm gonna keep enjoying Dark Souls 2. I've got requests for if I'm gonna do an analytical piece on Dark Souls 2, and I don't know yet. So far, I have criticisms. I really do have criticisms, but I think it's stuff that people are already aware of. I'm gonna play the game first, and it's gonna be like maybe a month or two after I even decide to start making it. You know, I gotta still make that 3D platformer video. I'm gonna voice that right now. Alright, once again, I thank you guys for your support. You're absolutely awesome. I know that I've been focusing on this Twitch thing for like a little bit, and I know that that's not the point for Patreon, but Patreon is a place where my most dedicated followers and supporters can get updates and get all that. So I wanted to give you guys content for, you know, essentially for free, because, you know, whatever. If you guys want to support the Twitch, then you guys can just donate on the Twitch. That's the way I see it. That's why I haven't been changing the Patreon to per month, because I still want to be motivated to do the YouTube thing, and doing the YouTube thing is great. I love doing it, but it's good to like have a change of pace, you know? I'm really enjoying Twitch at the moment. So hopefully I'm gonna get to a point where people can keep supporting me on Twitch, because they are doing it, and it's amazing. And then if people want to support me on Patreon, they can. And if they're like, "Hey, Nick didn't release anything this month, and I still want to donate something for him this month," then, you know, that's what Twitch is for, you know? So people have options of how they want to support my work. They could be like, "Oh, well, I want to support the YouTube video, and I want to reward the YouTube videos, then they can go for Patreon. If they want to support me on a monthly basis, then instead of changing the Patreon to per month, I can just say, hey, just support me on Twitch instead, just sub me on Twitch. You know, that way everyone has an option. And then there's a bunch of you guys already who have been doing both. So, you know, cheers for that. All of you guys are sick. You're awesome. I love you very much. And I hope you have a great week. I'll see you on the stream, and I'll see you in the next video. I'll see you later.
He's sicking you out, dude.
I found a morphog. I found a morphog.
Oh, he's gorgeous.
Dude.